You know, some days I get an email that just gets me all hot and bothered, and I got one today, and I just have to talk about it. So I got an email today from a friend who is a superintendent of schools in a district that will remain unidentified. And it was from a parent who had just completed a slew of college visits with her son, who's a junior. And she was reporting on what she learned, and she was a little upset about two different things. So I'll start with the first one. The first one is she was upset that she learned that it's really hard to get into some of these most competitive schools. They attended a tour at the University of Pennsylvania, and Northeastern University, University of Maryland, and a few others. And the message they got was that in order to get into these schools, a student must take the most rigorous curriculum they possibly can. And so in this particular case, they attend a school, the boy attends a school that has a lot of AP offerings, 16 or 20, something in that zone. 16 different classes that are on offer. And it was explained to them at the University of Pennsylvania and at Northeastern that in order to get into these schools, you need to take the most rigorous curriculum. So that means if you have 16 offerings, well then you better take a high percentage of those 16 offerings to be competitive. Of course, if you only have 4 offerings in your high school and you take all 4, well that's better. You know, at least you're taking a high percentage of what's offered. So the colleges they go to great pains to say, you know, if your school doesn't offer those, well then it's okay. But if they do, well you better take them all. So apparently this was new news to the mother, and she didn't know that her son, who's only going to be taking 6 AP classes by the time he graduates, he's just not going to be competitive for UPenn because he hasn't taken a high enough percentage of those AP offerings at the school that they attend. And so she's writing to the superintendent and saying, you know, we need to get our kids prepared because junior year is just not early enough. We need to know that our kids need to take more of these classes if they want to get into these really competitive schools. And so this was a huge criticism of what was going on at the high school. And then in almost the same breath, the parent pulled back from this and said, wait, but we don't want to put too much stress on our kids. Because if they feel like they have to take a high percentage of all these AP classes that we offer in this community, well, that's just going to create all kinds of stress, and our kids are probably going to end up like the kids at the next town over, where they've had 2 suicides in 1 year because of the stress that kids are feeling about getting into these top colleges. So we better dial it back. And the kind of implication, she didn't say this exactly, but the implication was, let's offer fewer AP classes. Let's not push our kids so hard. Let's allow them to take a higher proportion of the AP classes that we do offer, and so that they can have a more relaxed high school experience. So basically saying to the school, the school needs to dial back. You, the superintendent, needs to offer fewer of these AP classes because it's just too stressful for our kids. So this mom has hit it on the head. This is the sociological problem. This is the problem with higher ed in America today. And it's actually what's the problem with high school in America today for most of our kids. And that is that on the one hand, we want our kids to go to the top universities. We really are saying that that's what we want of our kids. And so in order to compete, they have to compete. They have to do whatever it takes to get in. And that causes stress, which is the other problem, because then if we cause too much stress, then our kids are gonna, They're gonna kill themselves, literally, or at least figuratively, and make high school a completely miserable experience. That's a problem. This is a dilemma. Blaming the high schools is completely misplaced. We ought to be very happy for this boy that he is going to a high school that has rigorous curriculum, that has good teachers who are well prepared to deliver that curriculum, and that kids can be successful in that curriculum. Because the reality is, in most of America, they don't have that rigor. You can look across, look at the rural schools in America, look at some of the urban schools in America where those opportunities just don't exist. You know, we need to be really happy with what we have and not blame the high schools for this dilemma. It certainly exists, but it is not the fault of our high schools. So if we can't blame the high schools, who can we blame? Well, we can turn to the other side of the equation and we can blame the colleges. Are they at fault for this? Yes, in part they are. Because they are constantly reinforcing this message that if you don't take the harder and harder and harder curriculum, you won't get into our fancy pants college. So get going, get with the program. Why are they doing that though? Because it's in their self-interest to do so. It's in their institutional interest. It has nothing to do with the kids. It has everything to do with the U.S. News and World Report rankings. Because those rankings, in part, are determined by the quality of the students coming in to those colleges and universities. And how is that quality measured? Three things. Test scores, ACT and SAT. GPA, which is a slippery concept, but performance of the kid in the most rigorous curriculum possible. So those three measures are what helps the college and university move up in the rankings. The higher those measures of the students coming in, the higher they will move up in the rankings. It's all about them. They are not actually looking at individual kids and saying, I'm going to make your life miserable. I'm going to put this pressure on you. No, they're putting the pressure on themselves to move up in the rankings, and the victims of this game that the colleges are playing for themselves are our kids. So, yes, do the colleges have a role to play in this? You betcha. But on the other hand, who is forcing us as a society to believe in the U.S. News and World Report rankings? We don't have to believe in that. We don't have to buy into the idea that the rankings actually tell us something useful about the quality of the education that is being delivered at whatever university. But we do. We buy into that. We believe that the University of Pennsylvania is better than Northeastern University, which is better than the University of Maryland. And so what do? Since we believe that, we put pressure on our kids to work harder, to take more AP classes, to be more stressed out, and actually have a miserable high school experience. And isn't that the saddest thing of all? That we're really the problem? But we can solve the problem. In fact, we can recognize this sort of two-headed monster, the one that, on the one hand, wants our kids to strive harder, go faster, be stronger, and then, on the other hand, we want to pull back from that stress that exists in this game towards higher education. This is a two-headed monster. We have the power to slay the monster, and that is basically to just walk away from the whole idea. And that is that we can say to ourselves, it's all about our kid. Our kid's education starts now. It starts in high school, or it starts in the womb, for gosh sakes. But it's now. So let's have our kids take great classes that challenge them in ways that they have their strengths. Recognize those strengths. Help fill in the gaps on some of those weaknesses. Provide them opportunity to do whatever it is that they think is fun and important in their lives. Instill them with great values so that when they meet difficult problems in the future, that they are grounded and that they are able to meet these stresses of life and the pressures that society puts on us, and they're able to make their own choice as to what they're going to buy into and what they're not. No, we have to pull back. We are the problem. We parents. We can sort of blame the colleges on the one hand. We can't really blame the high schools because they're responding to what we believe. In fact, the colleges are responding to what we believe. So we have the power. Yes, we might have to buck a lot of social pressure in today's world, but that's the only way out of it. That's the only way we can slay the beast. Just not get involved in this game. Look at our kids, give them a hug, encourage them to be the best they can be, and then go out and have some ice cream. Maybe some Jamocha almond fudge. That's my fave. But really, I feel for this mom. But Mom, you can solve the problem. Ice cream.